Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm quite excited. Are you excited?
Yes.
Because we're going to learn about a new book from a very seasoned author. Very, very deep and very, very interesting author. And without further ado, I'm going to now introduce you to her. I call her the sweet Esther Austin. Can we give her a hand, please? Now, I've got this book in my hand. I've got the book in my hand, and from you interested, there is copies here that are available that you can actually purchase today. The book is Wounded Lives, Wounded Healers. How to break free from emotional pain to bring balance into your life. Yes? Esther.
Yeah.
I have a series of questions.
Is this on?
Is it on?
Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah? Brilliant.
Probably it's best to hold it in your hand. No, I didn't stage that.
Thank you.
Esther.
Yeah.
I have a series of questions for you. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that all of this will actually bring out everything that is pertaining to your mind, spirit, and character pertaining to this book. Okay? Mm-hmm. And, but first, just for our listeners and viewers, I want to know, who is Esther Austin?
You know, that's an interesting question, because each day, I call myself the chameleon. I'm a chameleon of life. Any time, any day, any place, anywhere, I can be whoever I choose to be. And the more that I become stronger in myself, the more that I get to know myself, the more that I understand myself, the more that I work through my stuff and learn to let that go, is the more that I realize that actually one day I could be a singer, the next day I could be a model, the next day I could be an intuitive healer, the next day I could be a broadcaster. I can be anything I want to be at this moment in time, because I'm in a very good place within myself. So at this moment in time, that's who Esther Austin is, the chameleon of life.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, let's go straight to the basis of, the book. Mm-hmm. Right. What inspired you on a daily basis, and what drives you?
What inspires me is to be in a place and a position to give back, to reach out to facilitate healing and transformation in lives. What inspires me is that there's something within me, knowing that there is something within me that can transform and change lives. What inspires me is to know that the greatness that is within me, I'm learning to step into, and with that creative process, I can create anything. But it's not about me. It's what I can do to serve others. And so that's what drives me. And also, I enjoy everything I do.
Brilliant. Oh, I'm going to actually stay on a couple of questions like before we dive into the book. Mm-hmm. What is a typical day in the life of Esther Austin?
What's a typical day? What's a typical day? My day can range from anything. You know, I get up in the morning, I do my workout with my dog, I meditate,
Oh, you have a dog?
Yeah, I've got a dog. It's a cross between a staff and a pit.
The name of the dog?
Kush. Yeah. So, you know, I run my dog, and then from then on I could be working on a project, I could be interviewing someone, I could be on the opposite side of the coin being interviewed, I could be working on my website, I could be creating in many different ways. So my days are very diverse and my days are very creative.
Now, what was the purpose of you writing Wounded Lives, Wounded Healers?
The purpose is I'm an intuitive healer, and throughout the work that I do with clients, I've been working a lot with clients who've been through domestic violence and sexual abuse, and also a lot of young boys, teenagers whose parents have brought them to me because they've tried to commit suicide. So for me, this whole passion that I have to reach into those spaces, those wounded spaces, and to say, there is a way out. And so from looking at the range of clients that I have, the theme of wounded lives, wounded healers came to me, but also for my own journey, from my own wounded place, coming through many, many diverse experiences of pain and woundedness. It was a way for me to tell my story in a very brief way, but also it was a way for me to collect stories from others who've been in that place and who are now practitioners facilitating healing in the lives of others.
Right, Esther, my next question is a bit more, if you can expound on my previous question. What inspired you to write this book, and how did you come up with the title? I mean, is there a book, an author, an individual that gave you that inspiration?
It just dropped into my consciousness. I was meditating one day, and wounded lives, wounded healers really just came to me quite starkly, because we're all wounded in some way, but we're also all healers in some way. And so from that premise, I thought, what a great title for a book of this subject matter. And once again, what inspired me, my clients have inspired me, but also my own life story of being places, being in some sort of really dark places, but being able to come through and say, here I am, to stand on my own mountaintop and say, here I am, at this moment in time, until I take that next journey with self.
I love details, so I'm going to I'm going to want you to kind of continue a bit more on that, because my another question actually dovetails on that question as well. Can you tell me more about what the book is about?
Okay, the more is about bringing balance into that space. So oftentimes we spend a lot of time in this place of the woundedness and the pain and the resentment, all those sort of what could be perceived as in that negative space.
Right.
But also what we have to realize is that is often called our shadow side. And our shadow side is part of the whole.
Right.
So the book is very much about bringing balance, showing people, showing clients that when you bring balance into your life, you don't need to spend all your time in this hole, that there's a bridge that brings you over to the other side of understanding yourself, of self-awareness, of understanding your thoughts, your emotions, and how they impact on you. And then in that knowing or understanding, you realize, I've got a choice. I can make choices in my life. And whatever choices I make impact and influence my life. And so for me, unlocking that balance within clients, the book has the keys and the tools to help to unlock that balance. Simply means crossing that bridge over to the other side and then bringing balance. So, you cry, you can laugh. You're down, you're up. Without each part. Without light, you cannot reference darkness. Without sadness, you cannot reference happiness.
Right. Yeah, they complement.
They complement each other, but they're also on either side of the polarity of life. So
you mentioned about the shadow. Sorry, what's ringing in my head? This shadow side. Could you expound a bit more on that term?
Okay, my understanding of it, and from what I've read, but more so my understanding of the shadow side, is that we all have a part of us that we're not completely happy with. We've all got a side of us that we want to hide away, tuck underneath the carpet. But for me, it's like saying, just look at it, embrace it, and then you can deal with it so that you can move on. So the shadow side it's the part of our completeness.
That is a real interesting topic right there, shadow side. That sounds really awesome. Probably write a book exactly just on that subject.
Shadow
right
side. Yeah, part
What do you
2.
think? Just on shadow side. Right. Esther, You had the privilege of interviewing individuals from different parts of the world who contributed to your book. They shared their stories of being wounded and how they worked to heal and transform those experiences. And they were now practitioners. Now they're practitioners facilitating healing in others. What was it like interviewing so many amazing people?
For me, the most amazing things about interviewing all these people were hearing their stories. It's almost like, wow, you've been there as well. You've been there as well.
Right.
You've experienced this as well. And yet, look at where you are now. And for me, it was about them being in a place where they were totally authentic and honest about where they're at. Because I've come to the conclusion that talk is cheap.
Yes. We
can all talk and we can all say this, but energetically, the truth speaks itself energetically. That's my understanding of it and how I feel it. And so to interview people who were totally authentic, totally open with their woundedness, totally open with their pain, but also on the other side, they said, these are the tools we use to come through. This is what supported us on our journey, and we're still going on our journey.
But Esther, I love the sound of that. Authenticity and truth. That's a subject in itself.
Book 3.
Yeah. No, I like the sound of that. I'm sure there were many, many brilliant stories from your interviews. But can you share just one or two whose stories were memorable and made an impact on you, and why?
Okay, the one that made the most impact on me was the interview with Cindy Jarrett. Now, Cindy Jarrett is a shaman. She also works with horses, and she does a lot of emotional work with people, with clients. And for me, when she talked about the emotional dysfunction of, the world, society as a whole, and how we, society and how we're brought up takes us away from looking at our truth, takes us away from looking at our authenticity, takes us away from speaking how we really feel. And then as a people, as a body, we internalize things. And when you internalize things, it just creates, it's like a pebble. When you throw a pebble in a pond, what does it do? It has this rippling effect. And if we're not mindful of, we don't have the tools, or we're not aware of what we're creating, it can create, I would say, an avalanche of dysfunctional emotions.
Yes.
And so for me, reading back what she wrote and also listening to what she wrote really impacted on me.
Right.
And I guess the other person was a laughter yoga teacher, Dr. Maiden Katari.
Esther, before you go on that, what's really interesting, you mentioned about working with horses.
Yes.
So could you elaborate a bit more on working with horses?
Okay, the working with horses, the Wounded Lives, Wounded Healers books also touch on working with horses, because I'm an equine healer and communicator. So I also work with horses and their emotional pain. And it was interesting when I shared this with someone last year. She goes, God, do horses have emotions? I'm like, oh my God, they do so. I like horses, you might have gathered. They really do have emotions, and I was able to read into this horse's body and emotions in terms of what's happened to him over the years, different situations that he was in that impacted on him and impacted on his behavior. So the client wasn't able to ride him. And so for me, everything on this planet, animals, people, we all have feelings, we all have emotions, and I feel if we learn to respect that more, it would actually facilitate a lot of our own healing processes, because nature, going back to basics, going back to nature, is one of the most powerful healing processes that we have available to us right now.
I like the sound of that, Esther. Going back to nature.
Yeah.
The originality of awareness. Love it.
That's right.
Now, from your perspective, Esther, what does it mean to bring balance into one's life? Balance.
Balance. I also equate it to being on a seesaw. You know, if you're on a seesaw and then someone who's maybe a lot heavier or bigger than you sits on the other side, what happens? Boom.
Right.
There's an imbalance. But then when someone of the same size, weight sits on the other side, it brings the seesaw into balance.
Yes.
So how I interpret that for the book is that, as I said before, from this place of the woundedness that sometimes we're stuck in, and the pain and the negativity, it's about knowing that we can cross that bridge and start to understand about ourselves, learn about ourselves, become aware of ourselves. Also know that there are tools and techniques out there that you can incorporate into your life to help support you from coming from this space to that place, and that's where the balance goes. And then from that place you learn to enjoy life, and then from that place, when anything shows up in your life, you're aware of what's happening. You can go into it, you see it, and then you come away from it. You don't wallow in it. And the balance is that you can ride down the hill with your feet off the pedal of life. You can dance more with life. You can see the beauty in life and what's around you more, rather than always being in this really heavy space.
Heavy space. Wow. Now, I think I've come to a juicy bit here, a bit more on the book. If you can give us more of a perspective on what is it about our woundedness and pain that we reject, which keeps us in the dark, stagnant, and in denial of seeing it as part of our whole self. That angle, that if you could just give a bit out.
Okay, the way I interpret it, the way I perceive it, is that place is there to serve us for whatever reason. But it's from that place often that we can rise, that we grow. It's almost like the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yes.
So it's not that we're never to experience anything like that.
I love that analogy.
The phoenix, yes, because from that place of woundedness, you see people like Dr. Maya Angelou and her life, even Oprah and her life, and they've been through some real traumatic experiences. And yet from those experiences, magic is birthed. From those experiences, so many things, it's almost like the roots sort of grow from that space of pain. I know for me, I've used pain as my stepping stone into my greatness, and I continue to do that. And so it serves us, but oftentimes we try to hide it and put it under the carpet. And that's understandable as well, because fear can keep us in a place, and sometimes we don't know how to share what we're feeling, or who to share with.
Yes, I love the way that you look at your wounds as and your roots and the negativity, and looking at them as stepping stones, and that's a whole complete different way of thinking. And I love the way that you're actually focused on that, and to bring that. And do you actually explain that within the book? Is that actually a bit more in the book?
Yes, it is, because for each person I've interviewed, they've shared their paths, their stories of how they healed themselves. So everybody's used different techniques, different tools, different ways. And why I chose to interview, it's about 8 to 10 people I've interviewed, is that you may not resonate with one person's story of healing, but you will probably resonate with somebody else's path. So it's about whatever you want to take from the book. Hopefully there are nuggets of gold in there that can support you wherever you are at this moment in time.
So you say, Esther, that sounds like a great teaching tool.
It is. I'm realising that now. The more I talk about the book, the more I realise it's a resource. It's a resource that people can tap into for their own self-healing. And the book comes on the self-help section, for you to take away, and you can do your own process.
Esther, you're right. There's many people that are hurting. Many people are hurting out there, and it's actually understanding that hurt and understanding how to know that hurt is a part of your mending or your healing. And what I'm actually getting from the book is that you're actually teaching that the hurt is a part of that healing process.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And that we don't have to carry it for as long as sometimes we feel we have to carry it. You know, I believe that anything in life can be healed, can be transformed and transmuted if necessary. I really believe that.
Wow. And you know, you've got real people in there. You've interviewed real people, so that is like literally priceless in itself. You know, right, where was I with my question? So I was just getting so interested. Right. Now, therefore, how does your book influence? Oh, we're actually another point. Other guidance, insights, healing, right? Okay. Let's see. My other question. There seems to be the theme of being authentic. This is good. And standing in one's truth, which runs throughout the book, as well as mentioned by many of those you interviewed. What does it mean to you to be authentic? So this is good because, you know, I lived in Hollywood for 5 years, and Hollywood is a place of actors. And we're not just saying actors on the big screen. We're talking about even actors in your everyday life, all right? So acting, people acting, not being real, not being authentic. And now to really move forward, and especially what you're actually teaching within the book, Wounded Lives, Wounded Healers, the foundation has to be an authenticity before you can actually move on. Would you say that's true?
Maybe the way I'm going to explain it now is what you said. For me, the more that we journey with self, because, you know, we're journeying with ourselves for the rest of our lives. We're learning different things about us. We're always changing, always becoming and stepping into somebody else or something else that's part of us. And so for me personally, being authentic just means to be in a place where I can look at the reality of my perception of what I'm experiencing, of who I am, and be able to speak it, to be able to speak my truth in terms of how I'm really feeling, to be able to speak my truth in terms of what I'm seeing, without feeling I need to edit it.
That's good.
And, you know, and the more that you learn to speak your truth, the more that you become authentic, life makes life easier, because in all your relationships operate on a different level, and life then becomes more magical because it's on a place of this clarity and this truth, and you can just be yourself. You can just be, and the more authentic you become with yourself is the more that you don't feel you need to be obligated to anyone or anything around you. You can just be yourself, and there's a freedom to that.
Right. And what I'm hearing, Esther, is because of where we are right now, that means authenticity is a teaching.
It is a teaching itself, yes. You're drawing that out, yes.
Right, brilliant. Good stuff. Okay, Esther, my last question. What do you see the journey or the destination of this book? What is the dream? What is the dream that you see, with this book to accomplish? And that's my last question to you. Okay.
The dream for this book is that the ultimate destination would be to run healing retreats in different parts of the world. I'm looking at the Caribbean, because for me to be able to do lots of this transformational work, against the backdrop of a waterfall on a beach, in the sea, to be able to do this is going to be so profound. And so for me, the ultimate destination will be to 7 days to 2 weeks in these most amazing environments, doing some real deep-rooted, deep-seated healing, and then just to watch people walk away, their life transformed, so they can go and enjoy their lives, so that they can step into their lives.
Just to reinforce with you, Esther, when you talk about these scenic places and environments, it's not just that Esther just wants to get away in these beautiful and luxurious retreats. I did a study what the Romans did with their pregnant women, and what they did with their pregnant women, they would surround them with beautiful music, and they would surround them with beautiful paintings and, you know, positive environments. So I see that's a major part, and that is a teaching in itself.
Yes, definitely.
And I can see, so, you know, wrapping up the conclusion, I see that, you know, Wounded Lives, Wounded Healers is a teaching book to reset our thinking in the proper direction, or in the positive direction pertaining to our wounds.
That's right.
And to understand that our wounds in itself can be our healing turned inside out. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah, definitely.
Esther Austin, thank you.
Thank you. And before we sort of wind down, we've also got this mini workbook for yourselves, if you'd like to take it away, and you can start some work in it now. It's got some really great questions that you may want to ask yourself. If you're in a place, of whatever you're going through, you may just need some help or support. So these mini workbooks are there for you to take away. And if you need some further support or guidance, then my details are in the back. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, Esther. Remember, you can get the book here, and I'm sure you can get the book online, those who are viewing via TV or satellite. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Big round of applause for Esther Austin and for E.